first. When you set goals without a holistic view of who you are, what you value, where you've been, and what you truly desire, you end up setting goals that aren't really meant for you. Maybe you've set goals in the past only for them to fall away in a few weeks or months or days. You might feel like you just lack willpower, or maybe you feel like it isn't possible for you. Maybe you feel like a failure. And I can understand why you would feel that way. We've been conditioned to believe that only so much is possible. There's only so much to go around. Only certain people have what it takes. But I'm here to tell you that is completely false. And that's a good example of a limiting belief. Each one of us has a personal power that, when we activate it, completely fuels our dreams and takes us to places that we could have never imagined. Are you ready to get to know you so you can step into the life of your dreams? Let's go. Welcome to part 1 of Who Are You? I am so glad that you are here. I'm so excited to start creating that blueprint for your dream life and really getting to know you. I want you to get to know you and have the chance to dream again and actually reach those dreams. Before we jump in to part 1, you might want to know a little bit more about who I am. My name is Rhea Davis, and I am a holistic goal setting and happiness coach. I am super passionate about helping people reach their goals. And prior to starting this business, I was actually a special education teacher where that was my job all day, every day, helping kids achieve their goals despite obstacles and challenges that they may face. And from there, I went on to be a response to intervention coordinator where I help adults set goals and achieve them. So I took everything I knew about goal setting and applied it in a holistic way, looking at you as an individual, your background, where you want to go, what challenges you face, and created the holistic goal setting framework that we're following through this training. So there's 5 pieces, which is why this is a 5-part video series, where we are going to start by discovering your dreams and diving into what you want, and then looking at where you are and surveying your environment. Then we'll clear the way, we'll find a way to measure your progress, and we'll get going on achieving those goals. I want to ask you a question. How often do you daydream? I know that's maybe a silly question. Maybe you believe it's something that's just for kids. But daydreaming is really important. It's actually visualization. It's what you want your future reality to be. You're trying to picture it and put yourself in it. And if you don't daydream, it's pretty hard to do that. After I had my kids, I felt like I didn't really need goals anymore. This is me just a few years ago. And you can tell by the pictures, I really wasn't happy. I had everything that I could want, the white picket fence, the house, cars, kids, husband, all the stuff. But I felt like a robot, and I was just going through the day-to-day without feeling like I had a sense of purpose. I knew I was there taking care of my kids, but it just felt like part of me wasn't there anymore. I had so many dreams before I found out that I was pregnant with our first son. And to me, it kind of went all out the window when I got pregnant. And even though that was a limiting belief, and it worked out for my highest good, I really felt guilty for dreaming. I felt like even if I still had dreams, I should have accomplished that before having kids. Because everybody told you, or told me at least, it's no longer about you. It's about the kids. And they're totally right. It is about the kids. And you can't be self-centered with kids. And I really had to work and reflect on that and undo that limiting belief of it's no longer about you. Because it's not about you anymore. You have little people to take care of. But it's not all about them either. Your lives shouldn't have to center around one person in a family. It's a big team that gets to dream big together and reach their goals together. It's really just a perspective shift. If my limiting beliefs were absolutely true, you wouldn't see working mothers, you wouldn't see moms traveling with kids, and you wouldn't see any of the amazing contributions that mothers have made to society because they wouldn't have been able to do any of that. Your purpose and your unique, quirky, special, amazing power, it's always in you, whether you realize it or not, whether you have kids or not, whether you believe you can or not. You have everything that you need within you to reach your dreams. It's just about being willing to see it, activate it, and use it. Once I allowed myself to dream again, I was able to see what was possible and get really clear on the life I wanted for myself and my family. There's quite a few mistakes I see people making when it comes to goal setting, and they're the reasons why they're not successful. But the good thing is, once we can identify those mistakes, we can find a better way of doing things. The biggest mistake that I see people making is not being clear on where they want to go. Maybe people feel like they don't need a direction, already reached the goals society presented. Like with me, I felt that I had reached all my goals, but I still wasn't happy. Or maybe you're relying on a goal that was given to you based on your parents, church, school, husband, Pinterest, things like that. These are all beliefs that aren't yours and ultimately aren't going to align with who you are, and you're not going to be happy if you're trying to fit yourself into someone else's blueprint, into someone else's dream life. This might be a little triggering, but do any of these sound like you? Maybe you feel like you lack a sense of direction. Maybe you feel like you lack control over your life, or that you don't have trust in yourself. You might have difficulty making decisions. You might feel messy, chaotic, disorganized, or robotic, like you're just going through the motions. Or you might feel like a victim to your circumstances. These are all problems because they're not helping you reach your goals, right? It's not good to feel any of these ways, and you shouldn't have to live your life feeling this way. But when you aren't taking time to really decide on what you want, life really decides for you, and you're letting other people and circumstances and all those things be in control when you don't take the time to identify what it is you want and pursue it. I want you to think about building a new house. And when you go to pick it out, you don't just grab a blueprint off the shelf and start building. That's not how that works, right? That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. You can't just pick out a blueprint. Blueprints are great, but they're highly individualized, right? You can't just use someone else's because it worked for them. That doesn't take into account, the specifications that they want, or the land that they're building on, or the cost, or the size, that all of these different factors that go into someone's life or house in this example. So where do blueprints come from? The people who have a clear vision of what they want is where blueprints come from. The people who know how many stories they want, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, whether they want stainless steel or if they want carpet or tile. Without a clear vision, you can't create a blueprint. So how can we get to know where we're going? How can we stop making this mistake? Well, what are your dreams? You can't achieve your goals if you don't know what they are. How can you get what you want if you don't know what it is that you want? So what do you want? Look at question 1 if you have your workbook. And it says, if you could have anything in life, what would you want? If you could wave a magic wand and just have your dream life, anything you could want with no limitations, obviously not flying or, physical limitations, but financial, those type of things don't matter. What would you do? Where would you go? What goals would you reach? What relationships would you build? If you could have or do anything with no limits, what would you choose? I want to encourage you to pause this video and really take time to reflect on this question, but I have one suggestion before you do. Most of the time, it's easier to say the things that you don't want. Thinking backwards can help with that. Sometimes you have to experience what you don't want to know what it is that you do want. So go ahead and pause, and when you're ready, come back. And we're going to look at how we can get really clear. Hopefully you have paused and returned and you really took time and let yourself dream. So on the second question, it's kind of an extension of part 1. Looking back at what you wrote, we're going to dissect that a little more and get even more specific and even more clear. But first, I want you to think about what would happen if you just let yourself dream. What goals would you create for yourself? And where would you be? When you're willing to ask those questions, you can get to the root of what you really want and also the root of what's holding you back. So like I said, we are going to take a look at that second question where it says, look back at part 1 And I want you to think about what the goals that you wrote down or the things that you wrote down, what do those achieve? So a good example of this, if I wanted to build a house, right? I wanted to build a big house. What does that get me? Well, it's a place of your own. It's more space. You could host parties. You could do activities. If you've ever seen Step Brothers, there's so many activities. I love that. But I want to tell you, your dreams are trying to tell you something. It's not just about having a place of your own or, being able to host parties or having more space. It's really about having more mental space, maybe just having less clutter, having more space to put things away is creating more mental space for you. Or maybe having a big house symbolizes financial stability. Or maybe having a big house could bring you better relationships because you are, hosting parties and having people over, or you have space to get away from each other when you need to. Or maybe it's because you have space for hobbies to pursue something you're interested in and really pursue your passions and your purpose. Whatever those goals you wrote down in part 1, part 2, I want you to go a little bit deeper and see what it is that it's trying to tell you. What is the deeper thing that you want? Usually this isn't a physical thing. It's more of a feeling or like a level in your life, so to speak. So what you can do, take some time, reflect on those. This is the end of part 1. We will come back for part 2 and take your dream life and work backwards to see where we're starting and where we need to go. So if you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe wherever you're catching this, whether it's on YouTube or the podcast or Instagram. Catch me on all the socials. And again, if you haven't already, make sure that you grab that workbook. That is really going to make a huge difference in the results that you'll see in your life. So go ahead and grab that. I'll put it in the show notes. It's at hippiewood.com. But the link specifically to that PDF you will find in the notes. So you don't have to go searching for it. All right. I hope that you enjoyed part 1 of our training. I will see you back for part 2.